Mr. Chairman, we're live.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome everybody to what will be the last, I promise, Select Federal Natural Resource Management Committee meeting of the interim. We just have some house cleaning to do before the session started. And so we'll do a roll call really quick, and I'll give a brief explanation of why we're back here.
Senator Anderson,
Excused?
Senator Beitman,
Here.
Representative McGuire,
Representative McGuire.
Representative Winter,
Excused, although I thought he was supposed to be here.
Co-Chairman Boner,
Here.
Co-Chairman Burkhart.
Here. I can see Representative McGuire. I can't hear him though. You're muted.
I just tried on my telephone. Is that, are you able to hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. I will mute myself because I've got a lot of background noise.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks to everybody for being here. We just had a quick cleanup action dealing with this bill, which we approved at our last meeting. And it's just a brief overview. We did coordinate with the Department of Revenue. They did have some feedback to make sure we actually accomplished our intent. So the direction we got from LSO and from the director of LSO is that this isn't necessarily a full-on reconsideration, which is a adjustment and amendment to the bill that is technical in nature, though the technicalities are substantial, and we felt that was best to make sure that we did it publicly so everybody understood why the bill would look so differently when it gets introduced versus what we actually voted to approve. So not quite enough to trigger our rules regarding reconsideration, but it was the changes, the technical changes were substantial enough that I felt it was important to go ahead and have this meeting and ensure that we're just doing everything as transparently as possible. So with that being said, Mr. Brody, if you want to, if you would like to summarize the changes, you could, or you could have the Department of Revenue do it, however you feel comfortable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Brody, Legislative Service Office. As the committee recalls, at the last meeting, a bill was approved, 22 LSO 65 version 0.8. If you look in your committee materials, we do have 0.8 listed as part of the materials, and then there's a new version of the bill, which is 1.1. And what we've done is basically, in trying to address the issue that the Department of Revenue raised in regard to the bill, it created about a 3-page amendment, 3.5-page amendment. And rather than kind of bog down the bill by trying to get into the minutia of what the amendment does, the preferred approach was to simply just fix the bill, put the amendment into it, and create version 1.1. So that's what you have in front of you. And that's really the bill that LSO has prepared for the committee to move forward into the session, should that be the committee's wish. Mr. Chairman, I can just kind of jump into the bill and broad strokes provide kind of what we've done. And you know, the changes that we've made is part of working with the Department of Revenue. So if you go into the first part of the bill, we had a new subsection N created in 94601. The way the bill is going to work now is that we've basically rewritten that new subsection N. And rather than have the bill require the department, or excuse me, the state treasurer to ascertain what the cumulative increase in government revenue royalty is, and then have that transferred to the severance tax account. Basically, what's going to happen is that notwithstanding any of the other distribution requirements when it comes to the FMR account, the state treasurer is going to transfer to the severance tax account only that money which is needed to provide the tax relief that's provided under this bill. I think it's a more streamlined way of doing it, and honestly, in conversations with the Department of Revenue and just getting ready for this meeting, we're not confident that the state treasurer would be able to ascertain what a cumulative increase would be. They simply just get a check from the federal government when it comes to this FMR state share. So I think this kind of is a two birds with one stone sort of fix. Another important thing to note about the bill is that rather than a tax credit, which was how it was initially conceived, it's now been transformed into a tax refund. There really, and certainly Department of Revenue can offer comment on this, but from LSO's perspective, there's kind of two reasons for that. The first being that if it's a credit, then God forbid, but there could be producers that are operating in the state now, and then for whatever reason are not going to continue into the next period of time. And because of their lack of operation, they wouldn't be able to use a credit at all, because they would just cease operating. So the idea would be that the refund would allow for all producers to be able to take advantage when it comes to the policy put forward in this bill. The second reason for doing a refund was that from an administrative perspective, in discussions with Department of Revenue, this is a much easier thing to administrate. When it comes to a credit, there's a whole lot of background math that needs to occur when it comes to the valuation of the mineral, valuation of the property, and all the other associated kind of fiscal things that come into play. So the idea was to just try to simply make it a straightforward sort of proposal, and that's the reason for transferring it into a refund rather than a credit. And then kind of to the genesis of why this meeting the chairman felt was necessary is that the bill as it was initially structured failed to account for the fact that if we do have an increase in the federal mineral royalty rate, there's a ancillary effect where the actual assessed value of the mineral goes down. So what would happen is not only would a producer receive the tax relief for the fact of the FMR going up, but their tax bill would also go down because of the fact they're not being taxed to the same level when it comes to the mineral itself. So if you look at the bill, for example, page 3, line 19, this has to do with coal, but the same language is in there when it comes to oil and gas. Basically, we've taken the same sort of calculus for valuing the tax credit, which in this case now is a refund, but then we've also inserted new language to account for that decreased burden that's going to be imposed upon producers as a result of the severance tax. So we take the cumulative increase, multiply it by the state share, and then also multiply that by 0.75 to account for and approximate the decreased burden when it comes to the severance tax that's levied against the coal producer or the oil and gas producer. So it's certainly not 100% precise when it comes to valuing the costs and benefits when it comes to the policies of this bill, but it's certainly at least in discussions with Department of Revenue the best way to account for all the sort of factors that are being involved when it comes to providing the refunds. So Mr. Chairman, other than that, that's pretty much kind of what the bill does. The only other thing is that it provides the Department of Revenue a bit more flexibility when it comes to defining the timelines and things like of that nature for providing the tax relief, submitting forms, things like that. And then the bill also now it includes a reporting requirement on the Department of Revenue. They now have to report to the, I think the Revenue Committee every September, just to provide basically whether this relief is being utilized by the producers, the level of funds that are flowing in and out of the account as a result of it, and things of that nature. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's the gist of what we've done here in the 1.1 version.
Any questions for Mr. Brody about the bill? Co-Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. John, did you plan to go into this little bit of a spreadsheet that we have that the department sent, or are you going to let the department go into that?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that was provided by the Department of Revenue, sort of as a more detailed analysis or explanation of why it's important to account for the decreased valuation of the minerals when it comes to this bill. So they're in a better place to be able to present that.
Okay. I'll wait.
Any further questions for Mr. Brody? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, John. And we'll go ahead and turn to the Department of Revenue. Whoever wants to go, we have Director Henson and Mr. Grenvik. Sorry if I butchered that, but feel free to introduce yourself, and appreciate your assistance in getting this bill ready, and feel free to provide your perspective.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brenda Henson, Director of the Department of Revenue, and with me, as stated, Craig Grenvik, the Administrator of the Mineral Tax Division. We really do appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today on the concept and the mission of the LSO Draft 65. We were made aware of this bill sometime in late December. We did take the opportunity to watch the video of your committee meeting that was held December 3rd in Casper. Our understanding of the mission of the bill is to provide relief to producers in Wyoming should the federal government increase the percentage applied for federal mineral royalties. Administrator Grenvik will begin by providing an overview of the current valuation process and how federal mineral royalties are accounted for within that process, and that's without any statutory changes. Then he will identify some of the challenges that we saw in the version 0.8 regarding the FMRs and how that would be administered. In closing, I will provide some of the benefits that we see that haven't already been covered by Mr. Brody. And by the way, I think he did an excellent job summarizing. We spent a great deal of time working together. I'd also like to recognize Dean Tempty for also helping in his knowledge and expertise on the budgets and the accounting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Grenvik.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Switching between Zoom and Google Meet, sometimes my technical abilities are lacking. In a nutshell, there are really only about three concepts at a high level to get across. The spreadsheet is the minutia of it. The first is the fact that $1 increase, federal mineral royalties are a component of the taxable value or valuation of minerals calculation. So if you increase the federal royalties for $1, it removes from the valuation $1. So for a $1 increase in federal royalties, you're going to collect 6 cents less in severance tax for oil and gas. Okay, it's that simple. And whatever the mill levy is in a given county, if it's in that tax district, it's 7 cents. So in a nutshell, all that calculation is really showing is, okay, what would be a reasonable tweak to the calculation in order to make, that playing field level between the increase in royalties and the decrease in the taxes. In a nutshell, that's basically it. We came up with an estimate of the 75%, basically for illustrative purposes, a conglomeration of all oil and gas is 6% and coal is 7% on the severance tax, but then the county is different. So we just kind of picked average numbers. So it's not really reflective of any one instance. It's just an average to show you what's going on. The other important aspect is to understand that when we're trying to identify the increase in in royalties, according to just because of the increase in the royalty rate. There are other variables running around at the same time that makes it a little complicated. And that obviously an increase in volume will increase the royalty rate. An increase in price will increase the royalty rate. And valuation methods for individual properties, I'm not going to get into that. That's kind of too much minutia. But obviously, if you're selling more barrels the second year than you were in the base year, obviously that's going to increase the amount of royalties paid. And you need to identify what piece of that was really because of the rate increase. And likewise, if there's a decrease in volume and a decrease in price, it could be such that it lowers the amount paid from one year to the next, that you're not even going to get a credit, even though you should if the royalty rate increases. And so that's the other concept of going on a property by property basis. You've enumerated, I believe, the federal mineral estate. That can be incorporated into a property under our definition that includes state and private property as well. So it's a minor point as far as phraseology, but it's a big point in being able to identify what really is that component of increased royalty. The other, from our perspective, I'm running a credit versus a refund. Refunds, our system is set up to handle. Credits, it is not really designed for credits. And I don't want to get into the minutia of boring you, but we can handle it much more easily as a refund. In a nutshell, if we were to run it as a credit the way we're interpreting this, we would have to change some of the code for collecting our severance tax. And if you've ever had code changes or had to deal with them, you realize that we have the system for severance right now. We want to keep that as clean as possible. We have a system for ad valorem, and now we're coming up with a new system for the monthly ad valorem collection. And now this would be the refund for the increase in royalties. If you set them all for their own single purposes, you don't have to go back and check the code on your original purpose. And that's really what we're trying to do, is isolate this, because if you want a spoon and a knife, it's best to program for a spoon and a knife, not a Swiss Army knife, because you'll end up with a sharp spoon and a dull knife. So that, in a nutshell, that's what this is all about.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, as you can see on Craig's example, that it's important to note that both, as stated, whenever those federal mineral royalties, if that percentage were to increase, the end result is a lower value for severance tax and a lower value that is utilized for ad valorem or property tax. Granted, the distribution of those funds is totally different, but that's with the current law. The advantages that the department sees with the substitute bill, or the version 1.1, is that it would be one annual application for the producer. It would be per property, although because of the specifics on the leases with the federal government, but it would be one application that would be due by July 1 of the year following the year of production. And they would apply for it separately after the fact. As you can imagine, the original bill, it's asking those producers to determine what the difference is in federal mineral royalties as they're reporting to get this credit. And I think that would be a big challenge, because they don't know what the bottom line is until after the fact. So I think that would be a significant challenge for the taxpayer themselves. The application, we plan to make it available on our website. The key with a refund is that there's no impact on the valuation process. We don't have to go back and look at those statutes. Craig's already explained the reasoning for the 0.75 multiplier, just to ensure it's our understanding of the mission of the committee and the bill is that producers are made whole, that, that there is no additional out of pocket for the additional increase in federal mineral royalties. But it certainly isn't that the bill's mission is to give them an additional reduction in tax above that. We also think it's important that because of the differences on where these accounts, where the money is actually deposited, the way the second, the 1.1 bill, it makes sure that that money, as we fund these refunds, that it's coming out of the same pot where the additional federal mineral royalties were deposited in the first place, instead of taking them out of different revenue streams that never got the additional money in the first place. So we think that that's important. The bill does require the Department of Revenue to promulgate rules. We know that there are several unanswered questions that we're going to need to address during that rulemaking process. And as indicated, we plan on propping up a separate application process within our website for them to apply and provide those calculations. So, but certainly the cost of that is significantly less than making changes to our current severance and ad valorem valuation process. And in closing, again, thanks to LSO and again to the committee for giving us an opportunity to comment and review the language prior to the session. And with that, both Administrator Granvik and I are willing to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, committee? Okay, I've got, Senator Biteman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brenda, you mentioned they could the producer, the taxpayer could put all their properties on one application. Is that correct? So that you could just attach a whole series of, say, parcel numbers to this application to streamline the process. Did I hear that right?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Biteman, so yes, in fact, it would be one application, but because identifying the increase in the federal mineral royalties is per property, we hope to format that application such that you wouldn't have to have a different sheet of paper for each property, but perhaps a different line. What would be interesting with this, and we have not really went that additional step, this still needs to be auditable. It needs to be tracked. It needs to have something where the Department of Audit could go back out and say, to verify that, yes, in fact, they did pay X dollar amount additional in federal mineral royalties, and it's only based on that percentage increase. So we want to gather enough information for that. So we'll definitely be reaching out to the Department of Audit to ensure that what we're asking them in the application process is significant enough that we can answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brenda, for taking this on and all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, well, I'll ask a quick question here. It looks like the methodology you took when addressing the change in the ad valorem taxes and the way a severance tax adjustment would change the overall, or excuse me, the royalty rate would change the severance tax. You just have a specific number, that 75%. And I just want to verify that's based off of that spreadsheet you gave us with the gross percentage share being about 74.29%. I just want to verify, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We know, there's a fine balance there between ease of administration and ease of application for the producers themselves. And then if we wanted to go into detail per mineral, breaking it down as to, what the percentage is for severance tax, if we really wanted to get down to detail, you've got a different mill levy per tax district within each of the counties. that piece of it, as far as trying to make an adjustment for that, could get very detailed for all of us. And so the thought process was, we're just trying to recognize that in fact there was a reduction in taxable value as a result of the federal mineral royalties percentage increasing. Now, how do we address somehow that in itself was a benefit, to the producer, but still provide some relief for that increased FMR.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, it's not worth it to go back and look at the local mill levy rate in every last county where they might apply for a credit. So you're just saying 75% based off your calculations, and that'll be close enough then. And so just looking at the spreadsheet you gave us, it looks like the assumption is that it'd be a 49% state share of the federal mineral royalty, and as under the impression is actually 48. Is there a reason for the 49%? Or I could very well be mistaken, so feel free to correct me.
Yeah, Senator Boner. That was pointed out to us quite kindly and succinctly by Mr. Dean Tempty from the LSO's office. That the 49%, the 49% is what we're actually receiving. And working with Dean, we ran through these numbers as well, and Dean was part of coming up with these 6.3 averages. So yeah, that's what that was about.
Okay, just want to make sure it was covered. Any further questions, Quinny? Okay, well, once again, I'd just like to reiterate, appreciate your diligence and hard work on this. Appreciate the detailed explanation of how you came up with the numbers you did. I think that'll come in real handy when we discuss this with our colleagues. So any further questions, Quinny? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Don't go too far. We'll open up to public comment. If anybody has any public comment, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand. Looks like we have Mr. Obermuller with the Petroleum Association. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay? Great. Good afternoon. Nice to see everyone. Pete Obermuller, President of the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. I don't have too much to add. I just wanted to be available to answer any questions if there were any. Wanted to just take a moment and thank Director Henson and Mr. Grenvik and the department for working through the complications of this. It turns out pretty complicated, and I don't know, Mr. Chairman, how many of my members will want to go through filling out a duplicate gross products form annually for this. There might be some, there might not. It's hard to know. So in terms of a fiscal note, that's sort of difficult to know. But I do appreciate that you all probably saw the leaked memo from Department of Interior that they are considering an 18.75% royalty. And so we have expected this for quite some time. Wasn't really surprised to see that, but we do expect it to happen. And the state's willingness to try to keep Wyoming competitive in that sort of scenario is noted and very much appreciated. And we'll be working to try to make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. There are, as Director Henson pointed out, there's more work to be done after the fact. Should this bill pass, hope it does. To work out those details to make sure that it works for everyone. Just real quick on the 2% point you raised, Mr. Chairman, it's kind of a semantics issue. It's we always refer to it as 2% because the feds are now getting 2% more than we are. But it was a 1%. It's a 1% change up and down. So not 49 to 51. They like to call that 1%. We've always called it 2% back to my days on Capitol Hill, but it depends on how you want to frame it, quite frankly. Either way, it's a silly bit of taking Wyoming's money in order to do what they were already doing and claim to be that it's for cost purposes, which I've never really bought. And former Representative Lummis actually introduced a bill at one point to bifurcate federal mineral royalties so that operators would send one check to the feds and one check to the state so that to relieve the feds of their administrative duties and in order to go back to 50-50. In any case, forget that little diversion down memory lane. Mr. Chairman, happy to take any questions on anything.
Any questions, Mr. Obermuller? Okay, thanks, appreciate it, and certainly look forward to your members' support as we move forward through with a budget session. Not an easy thing getting that 2/3 majority, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll try to be as helpful as possible, Mr. Chairman.
Any further public comment? Okay, I don't see anybody with their hand raised online. Is there anybody at our physical location in the Capitol?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one in the room.
Okay, all right. Well, that's the last chance for public comment. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Mr. Co-Chairman, what's your pleasure?
Do we need to move this? We already had a bill that we moved and passed. What do we need to do with this?
That's a good question. I think for Mr. Brody, my inclination would just be to amend the bill to match draft 1.1, but we'll see what Mr. Brody says.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is kind of a unique situation in front of the committee, so I don't think there's really the yellow brick road or the clear line on how to get where we need to go. But my recommendation would be simply to move the bill, do a roll call vote on the 1.1, and then it'll move forward as intended by the committee, as originally contemplated.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will move 22 LSO 0065 draft 1.1.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Biteman. Any discussion, committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Biteman,
Aye.
Representative McGuire,
Joe, we couldn't hear you. Okay.
Representative Winter,
Ma'am, I don't know what we're voting on, I guess. I'm sorry, I just got here.
Representative Winter, we are on a roll call vote for 22 LSO 0065 1.1.
Okay, is everybody voting aye?
So far, we have 2 ayes.
Okay, I guess I'll vote aye right now. I don't understand what all's gone on. I'm sorry, I just had a heck of a time getting on the Zoom thing, so apologize.
Co-Chairman Burkhart,
Aye.
Chairman Boner.
Aye. And do we call Senator Biteman? Or did I miss that?
Senator
can-
Biteman was an aye.
I can vote aye again if you want. Aye, aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that's 6 ayes then. So appreciate your work, committee. Once again, I apologize. That's on me as chairman. I should have had Department of Revenue in the loop to begin with, but I appreciate their support and their expertise. It makes, I know that we're better prepared to defend this bill on the floor and in committee after they had their input. And yeah, look forward to the discussion on this one. So any further questions before we adjourn here? Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
See you in a couple weeks.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you.